Hey, it's Mike over at fishyourassoff.com, and today what I'm going to talk about is how to do your own jig molds, whether you're snook jigs or snapper jigs or grouper jigs, whatever it is. Just I want to show you what you're going to need and just the basic skills you're going to need to be able to do it to make your own jigs. You can save a lot of money if you do a lot of jig fishing on bottoms, whether it be reefs or inshore like I'm doing. They get snagged up a lot because you're fishing on the bottom or real close to the bottom where most of the snags are. So you go through a lot of them, and if you go through a lot of them like I do, I'm a kayak fishing guide here. I basically fish from Stewart up to Vero Beach, let's say. You're fishing around bridges, you're just docks, so you're always losing stuff. So to me, because I fish so much, it makes sense to just make my own. Because if you make a whole bunch of them, obviously your costs come down and you do it yourself. Jigs are pretty cheap. I mean, jigs, if you buy them in the store, are like $3, so maybe $4. So, they're not that expensive, but let me just show you what you're going to need. Okay, so basically what you're going to need are all these things. You're going to need molds, and only you know what molds you're going to want, right? Are you going to be fishing offshore for grouper and snapper? Well, you'll probably need molds that are going up to maybe 6, 7, 8 ounces type of mold. You want to know what shape. Are they going to be a spire head, a bullet head, all kinds of different types, of molds. It depends on what you fish for. Obviously, a pompano jig is going to look a little different from a grouper jig. You're going to need cook pot. You're going to need a ladle. You're going to need jig hooks. You're going to need a lead supply. Old cast nets are great for this, or your buddies that have all these sinkers laying around. Just an old lead supply. You're going to need powder coat paint. You're going to need your nylon feather material, epoxy to hold it all together, nylon thread to hold it on, some sort of vise. I'll go ahead and show you what I'm talking about over there. And lots of time, because it takes a while to do all this. So one of those boring days, it's raining out, or wherever you are, it's snowing out, and you want to tie some jigs, lots of time. All right, but let's just go ahead and go through them. So powder coat, here you go. It's literally what it says. It's powdered paint, and you basically heat your jig head up, right? You can put it in the oven or however you do it to heat them up. And you just pour the powder coat on top of it, right? I use one of these. So I'll take the jig, in a pair of pliers, and I'll just heat it up with this right here, just a propane, you get these at Home Depot. And then I just sprinkle the paint on real thick on them, because I want it on there real thick, because I don't want it coming off so easily. All right? Obviously, you're going to need some sort of mold, okay? And here's the mold I have. Right here is what they look like. These are spire head a mold right here. I filed down the noses just a little bit to make it more of a snub nose look. But that's really all I do to modify the mold. And I have ounce, ounce and a half, and 2 ounce. Because like I said, I'm just fishing inshore for snook and trout and redfish and things like that. So rarely am I ever going to need more weight than that. All right, here's just a little lead cooking pot you have. It's got some of my dead remains of some of the ones that didn't turn out so hot. So I'm just going to remelt them back down and reuse the lead. Here is just some nylon thread. It's just white. I'll put nail polish on it too sometimes, just if I want more color. But you can get red, black, white, chartreuse, whatever color you need for the nylon thread. You're going to need your nylon itself, and you just cut it to size depending on what you're doing. I wanted to show you this just as a comparison. So this is a bullet head jig versus these spire head jigs. I found this in the mangroves the other day. It's someone obviously fishing for snook. And it's a flare, so see how the bottom of the weight pushes the Let me hold it closer to the light. So you see how the bottom of the weight pushes the threads away from the body, gives it a much thicker profile. See that? So that's what I have with mine. You'll notice that there's this little bump here on the end. So that's your flare. So these, you've heard of flare hawk jigs if you do any snook fishing. It just makes the nylon flare out instead of staying closer. So it gives it a thicker profile. And here's your ladle. You got to get the stuff out of there. And all that's extra is just slag. It's just impurities in the actual lead itself that you got to scoop off the top when you're doing this. And here's the different hooks, right? I got a 5/0, a 6/0, and a 7/0. The 5/0 goes into the 1 ounce, the 6/0 goes into the 1.5 ounce, and the 7/0 goes into my 2 ounce. And here's just epoxy. This is what keeps it all together, is your epoxy. Obviously it's going to have to be waterproof and everything like that, but that's what holds it all together. And I'm going to just go show you my little setup that I have. It's super simple. You can buy a whole clamp system to do your jigs, but let me just show you how I do it in my garage. All right, so here's my setup. I just pull up a stool on my little workbench here, and I slap the end and the vice grips right there like that. Here's a step that most people forget to do. You got to do this first. You put your epoxy on your jig head first so you can tie your string to it, your nylon thread, because you need something for it to stick on. So your first layer is a layer of thread, and then you add all your nylon and whatever colors you're going to do and all that to create your jigs. But don't forget that step. Put epoxy on this first and wrap it in thread, and then add the feather material that you're going to do once you've cut it. And then halfway through, I'll put more epoxy on it and then wrap it again, and then you put more thread material on the outside, your feather material, just whatever thickness you like, and then wrap it again, and then even more epoxy. So I really want to make sure that, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. It's going to be real steady, and if I don't lose it, it can last multiple trips. And sometimes I'll even take nail polish in the end and wrap that around the threads, just to kind of seal it, enamel nail polish in the end. But don't forget this step. You've got to get the thread sticking onto the lead itself first, and then all the feather material can stick on that original thread layer. Yeah, I did that wrong the first few times. I couldn't figure out why all my hairs were falling out, and that's what it was. So here it is. This is my whole jig tie-in kit that I use. Total cost on this, I found a wholesale supplier up in Sebastian. I'm in Port St. Lucie, where I was able to get a lot of this stuff. These I ordered online. This stuff I ordered online, the molds, all that kind of stuff. So you're probably talking here $300 worth of stuff when you really put it all together, all your time and everything. And each one of these is 100 hooks, so you're making basically 300 jigs for $300. So it's $1 or so. It might have been a little more than 300 out the door with tax and everything like that. But the main input is your time. Whatever your time value is what you got to figure out. But you're talking probably about $300 or something like that. Now, with me, like I said, I'm fishing inshore, so I only need 1 ounce to maybe 2 ounces. If you're fishing offshore and you need some 8-ounce grouper jigs, you're going to need a lot of lead. Unless you got a lot of friends with lots of old cast nets, you're going to have to pay up for your lead too. Thankfully for me, I knew people would have old seine nets and cast nets and everything like that. So I got my lead for free, basically. But if you got to buy the lead, well, that's another cost, and I don't even know how you do it. It's like a poisonous thing. I don't know even where you order that, but I'm sure online you could get some sort of lead ingot or whatever you had to do, to get your lead supply. But old cast nets, old seine nets, your friends that really don't fish anymore, take all their egg sinkers, melt them all up. I melt it up right on the stove too, so it's pretty easy. Now the lead is bad for you. You don't want to breathe lead, really, lead vapors or anything like that. So make sure there's ventilation, all the windows are open. I had a fan on. I don't want to breathe that crap. But I want to make my own jigs. So these are all things you got to figure out. Your style of jig, how much you're going to need, what you're fishing for. But it is cost effective if you go through a lot of jigs over time. And it's kind of fun. On a board day, you're making your own stuff. It's pretty cool. But I think that's it for today. You can see more of this information right on our website. It's www.fishyourassoff.com. The whole website is basically simple tips to help fishermen catch more fish. But I think that's it. So until next time, we'll see you then. All right. Bye-bye.